Look at us all there in the lovely Word book. Welcome everyone to this very special edition of The Word, which is brought to you by Sligo Libraries and IT Sligo Creative Writing and Literature course. So this is such an exciting one for us because we are launching our LGBTQIA plus collection that the library has just put together with the help of you, the community. We got a grant from the Department of Children, Equality, Disability Integration and Youth to help us to put together a project to increase inclusion for the LGBT community. And I went out and talked to as many groups as I could, and we sent out a form, a Google form, and asked everybody to tell us what were the books that they thought that they would like to have, that they would like their allies to have, or family, or friends. So we just got the best response back. I was completely overwhelmed, and also overwhelmed ordering it because there was so much. So thank you so much, everybody. And thank you so much to the groups that helped us as well. Smiley, LGBT group in Sligo, Out West, Sligo Pride, Faroga, Belong To, Sligo IT, LGBT Society, and everybody else that I have no doubt forgot. Please forgive me. But yeah, it's been such a great experience so far, and I'm so delighted to be here to celebrate it with our amazing guests. Before I introduce you to them, and thankfully they're all smiling at me here in the background, I would just like to ask that you would be careful to keep your microphones on mute. So if you have a little look there on your screen, if you're in Zoom, for that little red symbol with the mic, and just make sure that you are quiet, please, for us. And also you can use the chat option for questions. We will have an open Q&A session later in the evening, and my colleague, the lovely Michelle Brennan, will read those out for us. And those taking part in the open mic, but I think there may just be one tonight, if you can have your video on for us at the end, so that when we go to you, you'll be ready to go. That would be great. So on to our amazing lineup for the night. I'm going to have a quick chat with all of our guests first before we have our readings and some music as well. And after that, we'll do Q&A and questions from yourselves. So get thinking. So we are beginning with the legend that is Ailbhe Smyth, a longtime activist on feminist, LGBT+ and other social issues. Ailbhe played a leading role in the marriage equality referendum and was co-director of the Together for Yes Repeal referendum campaign. She taught at UCD for many years, where she founded the Women's Studies Department, and now works mainly in the community sector. So you have to take a second to really let that first sentence land. Played a leading role in the marriage equality referendum and co-director Together for Yes, Repeal the 8th. This is somebody who has been central to huge change in Ireland, and I am so delighted, Ailbhe, that you said yes to coming along tonight, because I really wanted for some of the younger folk as well that I'd reach out to with this project to just be able to connect with your energy and your wisdom. So thank you so much for coming tonight, Ailbhe. And I'd like to start just by asking you a very obvious question that only came to me late yesterday evening as a way to start. What book would you have us have in the collection that you think that it shouldn't be without? Is there any LGBT book, something that you read yourself that you would love for others to be able to read as well, and why?
Oh my God, I never thought of that. There are really so many. But look, let me say first of all, Lou, that I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and to be in the same space as James. And I'm not sure if it's a VOCA or a VOCA reaction, but I think a VOCA sounds really great. So to be sharing the space with James and with yourself, and to say, a very, very, very big congratulations to you on this fantastic endeavour to have an actual LGBTIQA plus, as you're waiting for, come in the future, to have a collection of that kind in Sligo. And I mean, to know that so many people have been involved in bringing it together is, I think, really extremely important. I think, if I think about books, I'm going to say one which you probably haven't got in the collection, because it was written in French a long time ago. I started off in a department of French studies, and I really learned about feminism, and then I learned about lesbians through France and French studies, as one did at that time in the 70s, because you certainly couldn't do it in the early 70s anyway here in Ireland. And one of, I think it was really the first book I read that made me understand and appreciate how women can love one another. It's called Les Guerrières, and it's by Monique Wittig. And I will send you the link, and I will get you the translation. In fact, I will get you a copy and send it to the library. And it's about women warriors, and I didn't at that time, think of myself as a warrior. But as I grew older and older, warriorness seemed to become more and more and more necessary, as we were all, and still are in many ways, fighting for our rights and for the rights of other people who are still deeply disadvantaged and treated unequally in Ireland. Because yes, we've had great victories, but there is still so much inequality and injustice. But I'll definitely send you the book, and I'll come up to see that you have it properly shelved and catalogued at some point or another.
Thank you so much, Ailbhe. We will not let you down. And of course, when I was listing the groups that I reached out to for help, as well as the community, I have to say my colleagues in Sligo Library have just rode in behind this so incredibly well as well. And when you say about them being done properly for the shelves, we actually have some beautiful little rainbow stickers that are going to go on each one as well, so they'll be easy to pick out. So yeah, it's a big team effort. So thank you so much, Ailbhe. It's great. And our next guest of the night, our writer, is James Hudson. James is a Dublin-based writer using speculative fiction to explore queer and trans identity. His fiction is published with Southword Editions, Stone of Madness Press, and forthcoming with Pop-Up Projects. And his non-fiction is published with Monstrous Regiment Publishing and forthcoming with The Stinging Fly. He also works with the Small Trans Library in Dublin and the Trans Writers Union to improve the accessibility of queer writing to trans people in Ireland. So this is incredible work James is involved in, and very much like with Ailbhe, I really wanted you to be here for that representation and to inspire some of the community that are here tonight. So I'm really delighted that you said yes. Thank you, James.
Thank you for inviting me.
And James, I'm going to ask you the same question. An LGBT book that our collection should not be without, something that maybe that you read that really had an impact or that you would love for others to read.
I came prepared because I think you mentioned this briefly earlier today, or you mentioned it in an email. So I have about half of the Trans Library's catalogue in my house. So I went over to the box and I just picked out my favorite books. So I would recommend that everyone read A.R. Capetta's Brilliant Death series, The Black Tides of Heaven by Neon Yang, and Rise of Game Zinesters by Anna Anthropy. Two of those authors actually have changed their names since the books were originally published, and I saw that The Black Tides of Heaven, at least, has since been reprinted with Neon Yang's current name, which was only something I saw about yesterday. So just really exciting to know that that is still, that is a possibility, that trans people don't have to feel like it's an inconvenience, to go to an editor and say, I actually have changed my name. Could you reprint it? And a really big editor like Tor Books, who are, one of the forefront sci-fi publishers, said yes, apparently. So just delighted to see that.
That's magic. And we will chat a little bit later about the Trans Writers Union and what you're doing there, because that's very much to do with that, and it's incredible work. So thank you so much, James. And our musical performance tonight is the incredible Ren Dennehy, who is here in their Evoke a Reaction capacity tonight. Ren's pronouns are they, them, and Ren is a drag artist, actor, and producer based in Dublin. In drag, they're better known as Vogue Reaction. As an artist who identifies as non-binary, Ren is committed to making work that provides much-needed representation for the genderqueer community. They are the host and producer of the Queer Cabaret at Bow Lane, highlighting alternative drag and cabaret talent since January 2020. They also curate and produce Drag Storytime. Ren, welcome.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Representing for the non-binary massive. So, Ren, the same question to you. Could you tell us what book we should absolutely have in our collection for everybody to read?
Well, I have two suggestions, Lou. The first being my memoir, NB, very important, slated for release about 2055. So hang on for that. My other more serious suggestion is I saw an amazing play in the Dublin Theatre Festival 2 years ago called Burgers by Travis Alabanza, who is a UK-based non-binary performance artist, theatre maker, activist. And I think that the text of the play should be included in the collection.
Gorgeous. Consider it done, my friend. Consider it done. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to begin our first reading. Is going to be Ailbhe. I don't know what Ailbhe is reading, so it's a wonderful surprise for me too. So I will let you take it away. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Lovely to hear what James and Evoke are doing. I have to say straight away that I'm not a writer, so I feel that I'm here under fraudulent circumstances. I write a bit when people say, no, you have to write that, you have to write it. So, but I really don't consider myself a writer, so I hope that you'll forgive me. But Lou said I could just talk, but actually, you know, there's something really relaxing about reading something, and I hope there's something relaxing about listening. This is actually a piece that I wrote probably about 20 years ago, and I've chosen it because it was about a particular moment in my own, or just sort of thinking about my own life as a lesbian. But you need to think that this was in the Ireland of 20 years ago, and what a very different place it is now. And it's called Red and Bad and Dangerous and Free. Write an autobiographical piece, they said, something that catches your own experience. Write it however you like, fiction, poem, dream, it's up to you. So I did, slowly and tentatively, trying not to mind the uncertainties and the contradictions as they emerged. The pieces are not all of a piece, but then this is not a political statement about Irish lesbian experience. It's just a moment in my lesbian life. Red, to my mother, who has since died. Sizzling hot, forbidden red. I like the red stories best of all. Rose red, vivid and glorious, knocking Snow White into a cocked hat, and Red Riding Hood, who ended up in the belly of the beast because she wouldn't keep to the straight and narrow. But she got out again, intact and redder than ever, which pleased me hugely. I hated having to be good as gold, seen and not heard, pretty as a picture. I wanted to be red and bad and dangerous and free. I don't remember what age you were exactly, maybe about 2. You looked so angelic with all those curls. I bought you these red shoes, very new and shiny, and you wanted to take them to bed with you. It seemed so peculiar. And we'd all these strict ideas about what children could and couldn't do. You know, you really raised children by the book, no giving it. Now, I think it was terrible, but I didn't know any better. Anyway, I wouldn't let you. And you roared and yelled and worked yourself up into a dreadful state until you were red in the face and rigid with rage. It happened a few times, but the red shoes were the worst. You always had a fierce temper. I don't know where we got you from at all. Well, I don't know either where they came from. Those wild, selfish, childish rages and the residue of despair they left me with as a young woman. I wish you, my mother, hadn't had to take the full heat of it all. To be sure, it was about a struggle for freedom and selfhood, and now I'm glad that the fury grew into righteous anger, energizing, clarifying, liberating. But I am ashamed now of how careless I was of those who loved me. I wish I had been more gentle. All that anger and pain, yours and mine, we never talked about. All that love and tenderness, yours and mine, that we kept to ourselves. So many years of silence beneath our bright, empty words. But see, just the other day, we sat, you and I, two fully grown women, you in your 70s and me in my 50s, and began to talk across that great divide. We began to talk with amazing ease and grace of our memories, our terrors, our secrets, our joys, yours and mine. Soon, I might say, you know, it is women who stir me in my deepest self. You know I am lesbian. And soon you might reply, yes, I know, dear lesbian daughter in your shiny red shoes. Truth. The truth is, I fell in love with her, that sassy, silky girl who taught me how to rock and roll. The summer, long and hot, what else? When we were both 14. I adored her, wanted to be with her all the time, tingled all over when she took my hand to lead, felt a rush of heat when she brushed against me, never named it as lust, never thought of her as sexy. Day after day in her mother's prim drawing room with its plush three-piece suite, we played 45s and rocked our little 1960s middle-class hearts out, sealed with the kiss, Robot Man, Will You Love Me Tomorrow? Intoxicating ourselves on the angst of love and romance, and I never made the connection. How could I have done? I never dreamed of the sheen of sweat on her skin, never dreamed of her pungent, slippery dampness, never dreamed of reaching out to touch her reality. At 14, I had no words to dream the truth. Sex. But what is it that really makes you lesbian? We talked around and around until finally she said, it's the sex, isn't it? And we all fell about laughing. I don't know why it took us so long to see it, to feel the bliss and the truth of it. So how are we to say it? We've had them all, refused the lot, too cool by far to metaphorize for Eros. A woman is definitively not a fruit, peach, cherry, berry of any kind. But what am I to do, literal woman, when my lips are sticky with juice and the warm sweetness of ripe fig? No cutting edge now, just purple fruit filling my mouth. Love. I can't say which part of me is lesbian and which part something else. Feminist, socialist, an academic, a mother, or a daughter, an activist, a friend, or a lover. I'm all of these things, and more and less at one and the same time. Still, I know that becoming lesbian, which happened around my late 30s, grew organically, although sometimes very painfully, out of the extraordinary and exhilarating experience of feminism, which taught me to strengthen my mind, my heart, and my bones. More than 20 years ago, I chose feminism as politics, practice, and vision out of the passionate and perfectly rational conviction that what we do and how we do it does make a difference, and that to do nothing is a horrible betrayal of ourselves and of our humanity. I'm not sure I can say I chose to be lesbian in the same way. That's grown out of all my experiences, all my history, as much the raging child, the inarticulate girl, the angry woman, and much more. Women move me, emotionally, erotically, and spiritually. I love women. It's as simple as that, and it challenges me every day of my life. How are we to love, we who are the same and so uniquely different? Dream. I dream now of differences which have no meaning beyond their own tender uniqueness, body, skin, sex, voice, heart, mind, spirit, each cherished and caressed, each neither more nor less than the other, each strong, whole and powerful, passionate, creative and vital. I dream now of laughing, spinning, dancing, glorying in the full nakedness of my true self. I dream still of revolution, hope, freedom, and love. Thank you all very much.
It was beautiful, Ailbhe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do miss on Zoom the applause, because I know it would be a warm applause, because I could certainly feel my own heart responding. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So next we have a little piece of music from Evoke a Reaction. We are going to have a piece, The Noisettes, Don't Upset the Rhythm. So take it away, guys.
Don't upset the rhythm now. Don't upset the rhythm. The time is right. Sun is sleeping in the sky. Free your mind. You never know what you might find. What's your vice? You know we won't compromise. So let me show you something super beautiful. Let's rock the boat. The magic is unstoppable. For on the floor, it's the rhythm you've been waiting for. Pure delight, kick, snare, right. It's all up to you. But whatever you do, don't cut into my action. 4, 3, 2, 1, go baby, go baby, go. Don't upset the rhythm though. Don't upset the rhythm. Go baby, go baby, go. Don't upset the rhythm, don't you dare. I told you, don't upset the rhythm. Your skin and bone and a baton microphone. Can't get home, well you could use my dog and bone. We'll crank that stereo even when the speakers blow. DIY, just meet me up in paradise. Whatever it takes to carry you away, it all comes down to action. 4, 3, 2, 1, go baby. Don't upset the rhythm now. Don't upset the rhythm. Go baby, go baby, go. Don't upset the rhythm, don't you dare. I told you, don't upset the rhythm. Go baby, go baby, go. Come on, go baby, go. First like a library, go baby, go, yeah. Now don't you dare, I told you, don't upset the rhythm, go, go, go. Don't upset the rhythm, no. Don't upset the rhythm. Oh no, don't upset the rhythm, don't you dare. Hey, go baby, go. Don't upset the rhythm though. Go baby, don't upset the rhythm, yeah. Don't upset it up today. Come on now. Hey, go baby, go. Don't upset the rhythm though, yeah. Don't upset the rhythm. No, don't upset the rhythm, don't you dare. I told you, don't upset the rhythm, go!
Yes. You guys at home, I don't think you can see us backstage, but there was a lot of bopping going on. Thank you so much, Voka. Brilliant. Okie dokie. So next we shall have a reading from James, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, I won't give anything away. Go for it.
Now you've got them riled up.
Well, they were definitely riled up.
My screen is lightly tinted, so I can't see if you can tell how red I am in the face from muting my mic and singing along very loudly to Don't Upset the Rhythm, because that's a bop from like 2008. So I'm reading a story called You Roll, which was recently published in Queer Love, an anthology of Irish fiction, edited by Paul McVeigh, and also featuring, I was going to read the contributors, but there's like 12 of them. You can check the contributors on the website. It's a good list. I'm on it. So, Your name is Tom Carpenter, and your name has always been Tom Carpenter. And even when people thought it was short for Thomas, no, your name has always been Tom Carpenter. The name came from your father, Tom Carpenter, but you never really leaned into the whole junior thing. Him being called Tom Carpenter and you being called Tom Carpenter have nothing to do with each other. Not anymore. Plenty of people have the same name as people they don't talk to. Take your friend Sissy. You said, like SpaceX, and she said, no, like Carrie. And then the bass on a strange Bronski Beat remix shook the club, and you didn't bother talking again until you got to the smoking area. It turned out her name is Sissy Walsh, but she has a friend called Tom Cruise, no joke. But did you know the actor's real name is Tom Mapother? So really, Sissy's friend Tom Cruise has the cooler moniker. Actually, her friend Tom Cruise got to pick his name because he's trans, so it was a real bold move. You never put that much thought into it. You're just Tom Carpenter. For a while during childhood, people called you Tommy, but your dad was never much a fan of that because it made you sound like a baby, and you were already a big boy of 3 years old. He was like, he's not a fucking Tommy, Deirdre. He's a Tom. A firm, square Tom. So, yeah, the point being, your name is Tom Carpenter. Your name is also Tulip Fever when you can get a gig for her. That doesn't make Tom Carpenter any less your name. You carry your head differently when you're in drag. Not just because of the size of some wigs, but you hold your chin up high and your back arched out. Where Tom is concave, you, Tulip, no, Tom isn't a separate person, not really. You're concave where you're convex. You're high where you're low. You're long where you're short. You're extremely flexible. You can sing, walk, drop, you're beautiful. You've been told by men that you could be a model if you wanted to. You have the legs for it. They tell you so with their hands. You don't look a day over 25 with the right foundation. But you don't want to stand around looking pretty. Your drag mother is Scarlet Fever, and you love to dance. Tom and Tulip have coexisted since you were 20 years old, and you first met Scarlet on Halloween. You had this tradition at the time with your little sister Amy, where you would go to the costume store together and pick the worst possible Halloween costumes for each other. You always went kind of easy on Amy since she was your kid sister, and not once did she ever return the favor. At first you thought Scarlet Fever was a girl until she admitted to recycling her outfit from an old show. She wouldn't debase herself with a store-bought Halloween costume. She scanned you head to toe, from the tube top to the decidedly unshaved legs. She asked, "What are you meant to be?" You gestured to the pattern on the dress Amy had bought for you, the fuzzy dice bobbling around your neck. Sexy Monopoly board. Does it matter? It matters in the same way you have to learn from history, but in the same way, history won't know what to do with you for much longer. What matters is the time bomb, which is not what it sounds like, tucked in your back pocket. When the stall door is closed on the bathroom of the diner, you take the glowing device out of your pocket and give her a once-over. You would have done this at home, but your flatmates weren't too crazy about the possibility of you turning into the blue guy hanging dong from Watchmen. So cool, you'll take your business elsewhere. No ground to argue on anyway. You don't technically live in the apartment. You're Sissy's homeless friend on the couch who works part-time at the burger place. Lonnie, the manager, on the other hand, he was like, "Suit yourself. Just don't do it in the bathroom. Don't get so fucked up you can't host drag brunch on Sunday." "It's not drugs," you said. Lonnie waved his hand. He hired you when you were 29, and the past 4 years weighed on his back when he just left it at, "Stay safe." It's not that he likes the idea of his employees taking drugs on premises, just that he's no mama bear. He's a shift manager at a novelty burger chain. What can he do? He can't do what you can do with the time bomb, the things you'll do to history. See, it's just Scarlet fever had made it look so easy to be estranged from your family. She made everything look easy and fun, and you don't know how someone could make homelessness look sexy, but it probably had to do with the fact she never called it homelessness. There's something fun and friendly to the words crashing on a couch. You only noticed that Scarlett's bountiful tips were a benefit of her legacy and not her talents when you did your first show. And by that time, it was a little late for buyer's remorse. You were out, come out, kicked out, on the outs, out of luck, a lot of out of my way, kid. And it's obvious now, but you didn't know it at the time. You still would be you if you weren't out. And you only came out because Scarlett was out. But now the time bomb looks so snappable in your hands, like it's made of plywood. It's not drugs, it's not a bomb. It looks like a pregnancy test or a rectal thermometer. It's a little device that you've been told explodes time. The scrap of handwritten instructional paper unfolded from your pocket says this much. Pick date, push button, good luck. And there is a dial and a button on the underside of the device. You hadn't noticed them yet. What if you had pressed one by accident? To think you almost butt dialed a new universe. Pick date, push button, unmake one moment from your life. The options are limited, but that means there are still other options than this. That you have spent all the time considering them that you are willing to spend. So many outcomes in life can be decided by the individual person, and lucky you, so much of your life has been made by personal choice. But you've never been good at choosing. Life is a series of guesses, educated guesses at best, shots in the dark most nights. Is it wrong to wish someone had forced your hand so it would hurt less, so it's not you that fucked everything up? You've narrowed it down, not to your two greatest mistakes, but two moments that would change the most if you undid them. When it comes down to it, and your thumb is resting on the dial of the time bomb, you realize you aren't even scared. You aren't looking forward to it either. There's nothing to lose and nothing to gain from changing things. Only a lateral move across time. That's probably why fate put this power in your grubby hands. You're just curious enough to use it. Whatever happens, you hope you will stay yourself in this alternate timeline, or that you will still find yourself again, in time, at a better time, never straying from your true self, but just delaying it. There are two fuzzy dice hanging off your backpack. You prop one on the lid of the toilet and you roll it. Odds, you don't start doing drag. Evens, you don't come out to your parents. And you roll. And at this point, I have asked my assistant Lou McGrath to please roll a dice for me and determine which of the two alternate endings to the story we're going to get.
Dun, 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 dun. And the magical website that rolls a dice for you has given us a 2.
So evens. And yes, I had to think about it for a second because I forgot what's odds and evens. So you roll evens. Your name is Tom Carpenter, and your name has always been Tom Carpenter. And even when people thought it was short for Thomas, no, you've always been Tom Carpenter. Some people call you Tommy. And the other Tom in your friend group, if you and the other Tom in your friend group are in the same room, and it feels a little kiddie, but you don't hate it, you'd never introduce yourself as Tommy. You call the other Tom Maverick because his full name is Tom Cruise. No joke. And it doesn't catch on, but you like that it's just between you two. Your mom stopped calling you Tommy when you were a kid and then started again when you moved out. That's when your dad stopped caring what he called you because you were a grown man and it was out of their hands. No amount of calling you Tommy could make or break a fag now. This occurs to you in the middle of the night, lying in bed with Maverick. He notices your hand jerk against his chest and he squeezes your shoulders. He asks what's wrong. You don't know how to explain this conspiracy of the mind, or if you should even try telling him you've just realized that your father has disowned you in his heart. You just tell him you're going home for the weekend and that you're sorry you're going to miss the drag brunch on Sunday. Even though you know the answer, you ask him if he's ever going to come out to his parents. And he says no, he isn't. Okay, he's 3 years older than you at 37, and you want that to mean he's wiser than you. It's not a bad thing, right? He shakes his head. You ask, does he think his parents know? And he says, his mother, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It was brilliantly read as well. Yeah, had me.
Drink up.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to the questions as well. And thank you for that little bit of interactivity in the middle of it. Bit of crack. Okay, so where are we? We're on to Q&A, and we're doing fabulously on time. Well done, everybody. Gold stars all around. So I wanted to start out with a question that is a bit of a traditional the word question. So our connection with the IT Sligo means that we've always tended to ask our writers about their writing process. So it's an opportunity to share about like any rituals that you have, any tips or advice that you would give to new writers. And I'm going to address each of our panel. I know I've introduced Avoca. I keep moving between Avoca, Ren, because you're kind of here in both capacities and your non-binary capacity. But Ren is also a writer. They write theatre and short stories. So I'm going to put that to each of you. So whoever would like to go first, tell us about your writing process, please.
I will take the bullet because I think, the only person who put writer in their little lower third title. So just, I don't know. There's a lot of advice to give to new writers. I'm inclined to address the trans writers in the audience. If that's not you, then, there's other resources for new writers that aren't you. There's many things out there. Just for any trans writers in the audience, just because, especially if there's younger people who might be in college and things like that, I would say there is an extreme lack of visibility for trans writers in Ireland. And that can sometimes make it feel like there is no room for trans writers in Ireland. That, it's impossible to kind of carve out a space because, the classic saying is like, you can't be what you can't see. And it does feel very much like that. So I would say any writing that you do for fun, whether you are like someone who does text role plays, someone who used to write Wattpad fan fiction when they were 12, whether it's like you have original characters that you make up with your friends, whatever it is, like it is a degree of passion and need to create that so many people wish they had. So don't squash that down for the sake of respectability or of looking like a proper writer, because that is the kind of passion that would be able to kind of keep you going on a trajectory to, professional writing, which comes in so many different forms. So find a path that suits you. And there are trans writers out there, even if you can't see them. And, that's I'll I won't shill the Trans Writers Union too much, but you can find people who are like you and who love the things that you love, and just to write for them is so much more valuable than trying to write for a general audience that will kind of crush the spirit that makes you want to create. Yeah. So just be you. I know it sounds so bad, but be yourself.
Yeah, and I saw, James, when I was reading up about you, a great quote. You said, "Don't fear the cringe. Don't fear the cringe." And could you speak to that just for a second? Don't fear the cringe. It's so important when you're creating.
Oh, cringe your heart out. You know, me and my friend, like, we talk constantly about like the favorite things. You know, I have a friend, I don't know if she's in the audience, so if she is, hi Susan. If not, why are you not here? Um, but she, you know, loves a good angsty story. And like, that's excellent. And if you love a story where like, you know, it's extremely tropey and there's found family and there's like enemies to lovers and angst and all sorts of things that you feel, anything that has been done on Teen Wolf before, you're allowed to still love that. I'm watching Teen Wolf for the first time like this year in the pandemic, and I'm having a great time because it's just so self-indulgent. And I feel that like really leaning into that stuff that you may be shy about and you may cringe from, it's the most fun. And like, what more can you ask for than to just have the most fun creating something and knowing that if a reader reads it, they're going to have the most fun reading it because you just put so much like joy into this thing that you made.
For sure. Yes, it's completely infectious and it will heal the world. It absolutely will. Yeah. Who would like to go next? Please share anything about your writing that you'd like to share.
Well, my process is chaotic, haphazard, a hodgepodge of like very Aries rituals and sort of techniques and ways to schedule things I've kind of borrowed from other writers kind of at a later stage of their career. But I think one of the main challenges any writer faces is that all creativity and all creative output comes from this kind of, very deep inner place. And I think of all the art forms, writing is the most sort of, it comes from this very quiet place, I think. And the world, as we all know, is so loud all the time. And being alive is so difficult all the time that finding the right combination of sort of, your environment, your mood that day, and what you're writing, for those things to all converge. It doesn't happen every day, every time I sit down to write. Some days it flows like honey. Other days it sludges along like toxic waste. And it's just, I think it's about like setting yourself very achievable goals, being so nice to yourself. Like I pamper myself when I'm writing something, like a spoiled puppy. Because I think like it's again that sort of the loud world and all the distractions, is there's constantly things trying to pull you out of that creative space, that quiet place. So anything I can do to sort of keep myself there. So like lots of little promises of rewards. I'm one step off buying myself gold stars that I'll put on my own jumper. Whatever works.
Gorgeous. I'll get you some gold stars. Ailbhe, I see you smiling there. Come through.
Well, I'm smiling at so much of it because it's just lovely to listen to both James and Avoca talking about that. I love the gold stars. But I was really thinking when James was saying that what you write with joy, or let that joy be there, let that be in your writing, and that really is so important to getting rid of something which I think really does shadow so many people who want to write but just somehow can't. That voice inside your head that's saying you're not a real writer and you're not a real person and you don't have anything useful to say. So writing out of something which is your passion and which you can't in a way live without writing it, whatever it is, whether it's a novel or whether it's an essay or a poem or whatever it is. And that's always why I say I don't consider myself a writer, because I have to push myself to sit down to write and sort of myself to a chair, because I want to be out there doing something. And maybe I'm afraid of the quiet place, actually, Avoca, that you talk about, or maybe afraid of encountering it sometimes. But I think there's something certainly temperamental about being an activist. I don't know about being a writer, but the one thing I do know about writers I know is that they actually write. They sit down, they do strap themselves down, but they sit there and they do it. They do the writing and they do it whatever is regular for them, if it's every day or a whole day every week or whatever it is. And basically, you're not a writer unless you sit down in front of the page, the laptop, the iPad, whatever it is, and get on with the writing. And in one sense, that's the most important thing for anybody who is starting off writing, is to sit down and just simply write, make yourself write. And I wish I could, I kind of wish I could do that. On the other hand, I know I really can't. And that's the other thing. You have to know a little bit about yourself and not beat yourself up either for not being that other person or that other kind of person, which reminds me, I really do want to hear the alternate version of the end of James's wonderful story. I do want to be two people, actually, but anyway. So I'll leave it at that.
We might be able to do that because we have a little bit of space on the open mic. So James, you can just
No, this is all a complex marketing scheme for me, because now anyone who wants to know what the other ending is has to.
Yeah, this is true.
But I will say, kind of bouncing off both of Ailbhe's points on my story, which sounds very self-absorbed, but also the sitting down and writing. I also have, it's linked somewhere on my website, an account on the website. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's itch.io. It's itch.io. It's a website where a lot of people publish, like self-publish games, interactive stories, just any kind of like small digital passion project. And this story, the one that I read tonight, was originally written to be a click-through story where you would have to click to get to each new section and then click to kind of randomize what the ending was. I pictured it very much being a digital story. But then when I saw the call for this anthology, I thought, why not make it print? And I did. But there is also a version of it available online, which is this click-through version. And it has, it has some images involved. And it's like, in my opinion, a very different experience to reading it in print. And I think part of that is just, when I sat down to write this story, I was like, this is unpublishable. Like, no one can publish a story that you have to click. But I think the sitting down and writing that Ailbhe was talking about is like, I think what matters is you sit down and you just tell yourself you're going to write, but that can't be a punishment. It means that you're going to sit down and write, and it doesn't matter what you write. It doesn't matter if you're working on a novel. It doesn't matter if you're doing something that could be unpublishable. I literally have next to me a novella-length Terminator fan fiction that I wrote because I was just obsessed with it. And I was just obsessed with this idea. And I thought, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write my cringe fan fiction. And I made it, and I got friends involved, and we turned it into this zine to fundraise for charity. Like I have beautiful illustrations from Jamie Beard and from my friend Sammy Holden, and Alice Rogers involved. And I think, and all that just came from, like, Ailbhe, you're so right, just from sitting down and pouring out whatever energy you have in you into the thing that comes to mind. It doesn't mean you have to finish the draft of your novel. It doesn't mean you have to write the next Sally Rooney. It doesn't mean you have to create the epic short story. Just sit down and do it because you want to and you deserve it.
Exactly. I think, because I do know some people, well, I have known in my life people who swanned around town saying they were writers, but they never actually sat and wrote very much. And it can be a kind of romanticized profession, so to speak. or you can grow into that sense of being somebody who really wants to be a writer and who lives the life of being a writer, but who isn't actually sitting down there from 9 to 5 or, perish the thought from 7 to whatever it is at 12. And I do think that's important. But the other thing that I was going to say, and I just think it's really, really important. Writers also read and read all the time. So they're in and out of the library and they're in and out online. And it's not necessarily reading what you want to write. It may be something really very, very different, but it is just absorbing writing all of the time. And again, I don't think I've ever known anybody who really is a writer who isn't a pretty voracious, if sometimes very disorderly, chaotic kind of reader as well. And I think that's important.
I actually have Ren's favorite. Yeah, right.
For us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we have the library catalog for exactly that reason, so that people can enjoy reading what trans writers have written.
But funny thing, when you were saying that about you can't be what you don't see, I was thinking that I didn't hear the word lesbian spoken in public in Ireland. I mean, I barely knew it until the poet Mary Dorsey, who is also a friend of mine, and we're of the same generation, until Mary came to UCD for a reading one evening, and it was announced as poet Mary Dorsey coming to read, and somebody said to me, she's a lesbian. And I didn't really know any lesbians, but I thought in my youth, I thought this sounded incredibly glamorous and exciting and also rather sexy. So there was something going on there. And I said, I'll go along to that. And I was completely entranced and enthralled. It must have been from her first collection, and the name of that is going to escape me, but it just shows you how that was a really important moment for me. I thought, no, there are people who are lesbian and they live their lives and they write and they do wonderful things and they write beautifully. And that was really important for me.
Can I
Which is why I think the trans writers...
just to seize the host, to rip the host mic out of Lou's hands briefly, because I had a moment like that. For me, it was also in UCD, seeing Imogen Binney, who wrote Nevada, which is a big trans book. Ren, did you ever have like a moment like that? Did you ever have kind of seeing a non-binary performer or creative or anything? Did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, there is a performer. He doesn't perform much anymore, but Keane O'Brien, who's the artistic director of the Project Art Centre, does a drag character. And I'm not sure, I haven't pre-approved this. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say his name because it's kind of rude. Lou, maybe you can advise.
Go for it.
Can you stop
Okay.
If you have young ears in the background, if there are young ears in the background, perhaps now is the time to distract them, parents.
Yes. So he's a drag performer as Mangina Jones, and before I started doing drag, I hadn't seen a non-binary artist look like this, and for it to be sort of acceptable and for it to be lauded. And I basically based my whole aesthetic off Mangina Jones, who rarely performs anymore, but I feel like I'm sort of carrying on the bearded turban kaftan legacy.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful.
Ailbhe, I would like to ask you a question in relation to your activism, because I'm aware we have a lot of groups here who, like Sligo Pride and others, who are sort of starting out on their journey of trying to affect change in their own ways. So I wondered, if you went back to your 20s, if you were able to talk to yourself when you started out, is there a piece of advice that you wish that you maybe had gotten, or that you would like to give to yourself then?
Well, I think I'd have to say I don't usually give any advice to people because they never follow it, so that's kind of a waste of my time. And I never also because I very rarely follow other people's advice, although actually in retrospect I wish I had many times and avoided many sad situations. But I think I started becoming an activist uh, when I got really angry about things that were happening, and they were happening to me in the first place. And there's then a kind of second step, as it were, and you say, oh, well, gosh, if it's happening to me, I'll bet you anything it's happening to other people as well, or something very like it. And you sort of, it's like sort of peeling the onion, you know, peel off more and more, you discover that there's more and more and more and more people who are feeling that. So for me, it was never, I don't think anything I've ever worked on has started off as being some kind of rational argument. It has always been something that I've seen as unjust, unfair, deeply disrespectful, cruel, brutal, and so much of, I'm sorry to have to say it because it's not very funny or anything, but so much of what's around us in the world when we open our eyes is all of those things. And you, as well as all of the beautiful things that coexist alongside it. But, you know, that was always what motivated me. And I think also that if you are involved and want to be involved as an activist, you kind of need to look at your own temperament a little bit and see, do you have the kind of foot that stamps hard on the ground whenever you're furious and fed up with things? Because if you have, go for it immediately. Everybody else, if you don't have that kind of foot, you kind of have to teach yourself how to have it. Because that's what keeps you going, that sense that something is wrong and that it shouldn't be allowed to happen, it shouldn't be allowed to continue, and furthermore that you should change it. But you can't do that on your own, so you get together with other people. And I think that's probably, it's not unlike what motivates you to write. It's an impulse, it's a strong feeling that this is what you need to do. So sometimes, yes, that's what I would say to people. If you have that foot and you feel yourself stamping it and saying that's quite wrong, be very careful, because you probably are going to end up being an activist, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah, I picked up on that from in your story, just that the energy was very resonant around that idea of like those rages as a child, and that kind of twigged with me as well. That, yeah, I felt that. Yeah. Could I ask you as well?
Could I just say though quickly there that certainly for girls and for women, that can get kind of pushed out of us quite quickly, that we shouldn't be so angry, that we shouldn't be so loud, that we shouldn't be shouting and so on. I mean, I think it is quite gendered in a way, and that actually makes me very angry. But it does mean that girls, I think, have to be really clear that when something is wrong, that it's okay to stand up and shout about it. And I mean, just a webinar I was at this morning, people were saying, oh, we need to do such and such. And I was saying, yes, and we don't have to do it politely. It's very, very wrong. So we should be very strong and angry, and if necessary, quite rude about this thing that shouldn't be happening. I do say that particularly to young women.
Yeah, there is being nice is a legacy that, yeah. And I was going to ask you that if you could speak very briefly for people who are working in groups together, is there a piece of communication advice that you would give them about clear communication? Because that's so important, because if you're working together, you have to be able to get your ideas across and kind of come together. Is there anything that you could say to that?
Yes, well, that's very difficult. I think the one thing that we all can do more of, and I'm amused that you say speak briefly because I don't normally do that very well, is actually to listen. Just listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
Much as
yeah, and I'm listening to my colleague here is telling me that we have 20 questions and comments at least from the people at home. So I need to ask a question to James and a question to Avoka, and then we will go to you guys at home who are just obviously bursting to get through. So forgive me, but James, could you tell us a little bit about the Trans Writers Union, please? I think it's really important what you guys are doing.
Yeah, Ailbhe's entire statement was actually great. So much of it. It's so interesting hearing you talk about that sense of just kind of at some point realizing this is an injustice. And if I feel like this, many other people feel like this. Because there can be a sense of when you are, I'm going to just say a minority, because I was going to say trans person, but it sounds like it would apply to almost any kind of, person under the LGBT spectrum. That there can be this sense that when you are hurt or slighted or, oppressed in a way, that, that's your problem. That, that's probably just your situation, and that's something that you have to deal with on a very personal level. And having that moment where you realize other people are probably also going through this because they are of the same identity as me. It's not a matter of kind of going, oh, I have to be an activist because other people are suffering, and so I have to speak for them, It's actually a moment of, oh, other people are going through this, and that means I can talk to someone. That means that someone else will hear me out, and we can talk about the fact that this is something that hurts. And maybe some form of activism will come from that. But the first step of just talking to another person about something that is hurting you is like the bedrock of all activism, as far as, in my experience and my limited experience. How the Trans Writers Union was started, it was in the aftermath of a lot of just like very, very harmful discourse after John Boyne's book about a trans girl had come out. And it wasn't even about the book itself coming out. It was the entire atmosphere that was created after that came out. And it became a very scary place it became very scary to be a trans person in Irish writing on a more visible level, because, there's always a base level of fear. But suddenly the idea of trans identity in literature and in writing in Ireland was propelled to the forefront, with everybody saying, people on one side saying, John Boyne shouldn't have written this book because he's not trans. And then people on the other side saying, a person should be able to write whatever book they want. And then many opinions falling in between. I'm probably not on either extreme end of that kind of spectrum of opinions, but this kind of the trans debate kind of shot to the forefront and just made it, very, very, very scary to kind of be in that environment. And after months of increasingly, scary interactions happening where, you would run into someone in the literary sphere where you would feel, oh, I'm going to be safe here. And you would just find out that they were transphobic, and suddenly the rug is taken out from under you. Or, I had been to events that were marketed as LGBT literature events, and then there would be no trans people. And I'd be like, well, that's an LGBT event then. You forgot one. And so the kind of mix of just very like ignorance and also willful harmfulness was what led Anne and I to start the union, because I just went to my friend Anna Walsh. I went, is it putting the cart before the horse to just do something? Like, am I kind of nuts that I'm seeing all this going around? Like, is anyone else feeling this? And everyone was feeling it. It's just that, it's when you're trans in writing, you're not in a position to kind of put yourself out there, because visibility kind of always means harm will come to you by default. If you put yourself out there to kind of be an activist, you are the first person who will kind of receive any hateful responses. I'm so sorry, that kind of was a tangent related to what Ailbhe was saying, but that was the inception of the union, and then since then we've created a network of support for trans writers, and we've done way more than I expected to, very quickly. We will be at the Imagine Belfast Festival next month. We'll have a few of our members who will be speaking on the topic of being trans in writing, and we're just doing great work, actually, getting trans people talking to one another and going, okay, now that we are all agreed that everything kind of sucks right now, it's out there. Someone said it. Let's do something.
Yeah, that's magic, James. Ren, I could see you nodding there. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a non-binary drag performer in the drag scene in Ireland?
It's certainly the experience of being a minority, and all that goes with that. The drag scene in Ireland, I think the drag scene worldwide, is still predominantly dominated by cisgendered men. Cisgendered men are fantastic. Cisgendered men can be great, but when you've only got cisgendered men on the menu, it gets a little repetitive. So when I started drag in 2018, I had grand plans that I was going to storm the existing venues and I was going to turn them around and then change the whole face of drag forever in one fell swoop. But that was not the case. I performed at these venues. They said, no, thank you. This isn't our kind of drag. Be on your way. And thankfully, I had a background as a theatre producer. So I had experience creating events, live theatre, marketing. So I established the Queer Cabaret, originally at Drop Dead Twice in Francis Street in January 2019 as a platform for underrepresented members of the queer performance community in general, namely drag kings, trans performers, and non-binary artists like myself. We have a whole kind of range of talents and skills in our programming across drag and comedy, live music, but also spoken word and new writing and activism. So the Queer Cabaret, over its kind of almost 2 years of life, has seen a real diversity of talents and people from different backgrounds kind of gracing the stage. And another sort of string to my queer performance producing bow is the children's literacy event Drag Storytime Ireland, which was founded by a performer called Beth Hayden. I then took over last year and started writing original stories for our Drag Storytime sessions, which are young people's events hosted by drag performers. And we've performed at Bram Stoker Festival in Dublin. We'll be performing at the National Gallery of Ireland on the 27th of March, myself and Lou up there in the corner. We'll be performing for the National Gallery's, I think Queering the Past is the name of their programme. And we will be on Saturday the 27th at 1 p.m.
Yes, we will. Thanks, Ren. So, Michelle, I feel bad. I feel like we need some questions. Let us hear from the audience. Michelle, Dewspawn. We can't hear you all the way over there in Sligo.
Can you hear me through Zoom now? I'm gonna chat.
There. Yes.
Comments and chats coming in. When you talked about recommended reading, we asked as well on the chat here for guests here to recommend as well if they'd like to. So the first comment is from Niall Jordan, and it says, "This is an awesome panel and loving the book recommendation so far. Hopefully we can get a list later on." Linda Feeney asked for a yes please to. Jessamine talks about Sarah Waters' brilliant historical fiction. Niall Jordan recommends Alan Hollinghurst, who has a collection of gay fiction. Jessamine also recommends Sarah Clancy, Jane Clark, Denise Smith, and beautiful poets. Sarah Clancy read for us in The Word just over a year ago, and her event is still up on our YouTube channel, so if you want to have a look at that, she was brilliant that night. Niall Jordan recommends At Swim Two Boys by Jamie O'Neill. Charlotte Gregory, Irish author, has 2 books, one due out soon. Ailbhe Oh, Jasmine recommends. Oh, so, Jasmine told us about Ailbhe's writing, or when you were reading earlier on, Ailbhe. She says fabulous writing, loved it. Now Jordan recommends Gypsy Boy by Mikey Walsh. I remember reading that. That's an amazing story. He also recommends The Arrival of Fergal Flynn by Brian Kennedy. When we're talking about the writing again, so Alice says the writing is beautiful. Diane says beautiful writing, thank you. Now Jordan says Ailbhe, beautiful rendered discovery of identity through experiences and encounters, loved, and yes, applause. So everybody was applauding you. You may not have been hearing it, but we were all applauding you quietly. Hazel OG says to everyone, lovely work. Glenn, to everyone, says very moving. Colin Lawler says really loved that. Colin, we know you from previous words. Michael Burke says amazing work. Maeve McCormick, beautiful, thank you. Jessamine says wow, that was wonderful. Jen Keane says so beautiful, thank you, Ailbhe, really touched. Niall Keane says that was so sweet, and goes on. Hana Vodka, I think that was when you were performing, Ren. Lisa McDonald says that was heartwarming, thank you, Ailbhe. Niall Jordan says, I am so excited for this collection. Margaret says, The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall, 1928, another book recommendation. We'll keep a list of these recommendations, and we'll might do something with that as well. I think this is in relation again to Avoca Ren. That popped off, and that was from Glenn. That's just a little comment. Now Jordan says, woohoo, go Avoca. Come back to Sligo Pride 21. So hopefully. Amazing performances so far. This is from Linda Fennessy. Amazing performances so far. I think these are more recommendations she recommends, or they recommend Andrea Gibson, Andrew Macmillan, Dean Atta, Ivan Coyote for poetry. Let's see. Cosign for Sarah Waters, historical fiction. Niall Jordan says, While I Wait to Be God Again by Don Martin, a poetry collection. Niall Keane says, Drag Queen Time Travel is boy something I knew I wanted. Okay, right, this is for James. Drag Queen Time Travel is boy something I knew I wanted. Yeah, absolutely. Or not something I wanted. Jen Keane is roaring. She's treble, quadruple days, so she's going, James, no way. Lisa McDonough says, so easy to listen to you, James. Alice says excellent reading, thank you. Hazel G says, well done, thank you. Oliver Diarmid, our friend from the Word from the last month, says, well done, James. Michael Burke says, James, that was brilliant. Diane says, brilliant night's entertainment. Thank you to organisers and contributors, much appreciated. Now, Jordan says, thank you, James, for reading a wonderful piece. I think that's a lot of applause from Anna, just lots and lots of little hands. Now, Jordan says, can James be hired to follow me around, socially distanced, reminding of the importance of cringe, please and thank you. I don't know if you're available for that, James. Maeve O'Hare says, 4 beautiful souls. Alice says, big applause to all readers' performers tonight. Ailbhe, you are such a legend. So delighted to be in the Zoom room with you. And Lou is killing it as MC, right? Niall Jordan says, yes, thank you, Ailbhe. Reading diverse pieces helped so much to experience voice. Avoca's look reminds me of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I am loving it. In LGBT plus voices with Gavin McCree, we looked at Avoca in LGBT fiction and writing. This idea of okay, I'm going to have to read this properly, sorry, this is a long one, and this just to confirm this is from Niall Jordan. In LGBT plus voices with Gavin McCree, we looked at Avoca in LGBT fiction and writing. This idea of we have to attest or confess who we are. I think the parable of Pride as a protest and performance or celebration speaks to this need to find our voices, and writing and creativity is part of this, or creatively is part of this. Sarah says, I think the panel might need. No, I think that it was just a bit of interference earlier on, so that's okay. There's a bit of an echo earlier on. Okay, so Emily says, excellent panel and discussions. Hope this is recorded. Well done, Sligo. It is recorded. It's up on our Facebook page immediately now, and we'll be putting it up on our YouTube channel tomorrow, first thing. Sarah says, this has been a phenomenal evening, so well curated. Sincere thanks to each of you. And the final one is from Max O'Flynn, and he says this was amazing. And I think that's it. I thought there was a question somewhere, but we might have gotten everything done now. I think there was one for James. Oh no, it's just about them following around. So no, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Lots of comments. Everybody really loving tonight, and all the performances and all the readings. So yeah, fantastic. So Lou, I'll leave it or send it back to you. You want to take over?
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. And a huge thanks to Michelle as well for holding my hand the whole way through the setup of this, and the many little head melty moments of wondering if it would all come together. So guys, I have a few more little questions for you, if that's okay. Is everybody okay to chat for another few minutes? And then we will have our last piece of music. Thank you. We have I could see you nodding, sorry. We can have our last piece of music then from Avoca, and then we have one brave soul who's going to open mic for us, so we'll do that at 5 to 8. So fantastic. Okay, so Ailbhe, what I was going to ask you about was, could you tell us a little bit about the Women's Study Forum? Because I love being a group of people coming together to share things. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that was quite a revolutionary act.
Yeah, I suppose so. It kind of comes from left of field, haven't thought of it for years, really. I'm just very amused at the moment at Sligo's idea of what constitutes a question. All these wonderful compliments. Thank you all very much for all of us. It was really lovely. But if you think those are questions, you're going to have to think again, okay? Anyway, I did love it. The Women's Studies Forum started in UCD in 1983, actually, and it started because nobody was talking about women, and there was no books, no courses, no nothing about women, and we'd had the whole of the 70s on, women's liberation, gay liberation, the lot. There was nothing. So I thought, oh, this has to change. And I put up a notice to say Women's Studies Forum meets every Tuesday at 1:00. And people kept coming up to me and saying, oh, and are many people going to this? And I would say, loads. With the result that the first meeting we had, there were loads there, actually, because everybody thought everybody else was going anyway. And we did all kinds of things. We brought in lots of writers and artists to read. And in fact, pretty well all of those writers and artists, without exception, said they'd never read in a university in Ireland before. And we also did workshops and we just explored whatever we wanted to explore, whether that was history, whether it was about sexuality. And it paved the way for setting up the Centre for Women's Studies, which was the Women's Education Research and Resource Centre. And as soon as we got our centre, I then thought it would be really important to do something on, basically on lesbians. And I said we'd have a conference on sexuality, and the Board of Studies said, oh, no, you can't do that. That wouldn't be acceptable. And I think they were terrified at the thought of baby dykes running all over UCD, which actually was quite exciting for a lot of us. But that wasn't being allowed. So that didn't get a yes, and it taught me a really important lesson. Never, ever ask if you can do something. Just go ahead and do it. So, the following year, started the Lesbian Lives Conference, because I thought, no, I don't really want to talk about sexuality. I just want lesbians to have a space, much as James might now say or evoke in relation to non-binary people. I just want to create a space where people can be themselves and out. And it wasn't separatist. Anybody could come, but you had to want to talk about lesbians and to be with lesbians. So it was very open, but at the same time, you had to do what we told you. So that ultimately led then to there being a section on queer studies in women's studies in UCD, which was the only part of UCD that had queer studies at that time. So that's a kind of potted history. It seems very far away now, but it is interesting to think how sort of the patterns of those histories do repeat themselves when you look at other groups who are marginalized or excluded. And it does teach you, it really teaches you very strong lessons. It really does. In fact, out of that grew the first public conversation about trans issues in certainly in Dublin, and I think probably in Ireland as a whole, around about 1993. And it was a wonderful trans woman called Anya Holston who somebody had got thrown out of one of the workshops at Lesbian Lives because she was trans, or she was threatened to be thrown out. And I lost it and said, that's absolutely disgraceful. You know, if somebody threw me out of something for being lesbian, I would be absolutely enraged, and I would also be deeply offended and hurt, but I would be furious. We can't have that. So we all went on to have a conversation in a public space, the back of GCN actually, and that was the first time. That was about 93, I think. And Anya then went to the US, and unfortunately I've lost track of her, and I don't know if she's still there. She was lovely, lovely woman. Anyway, those are very long times ago.
Yeah, but it's still so relevant, because as you were talking about it, what's ticking over in my head is the conversation that I had with several people from the community here in Sligo about how we create more of a network and more of a feeling of community, because there aren't a lot of queer spaces in Sligo. And that was an idea that was slightly floating around in the back of my head, was that, like, if you brought people together, is there a way to do it sort of without it necessarily being the pub or the club, and where there's an opportunity for ideas and things to grow? So that was why I wanted you to talk about it. You nailed exactly what I was thinking of, and I find that really inspiring. Yeah, thank you, Ailbhe. And I think we're probably getting to the point where I'm pushing it because I just don't want the party to stop. But I do want to play Avoca's last piece and let our open mic person come on. But just to throw it open to the panel, was there anything that you guys wanted to either ask each other or pick up on? Yes, go.
I want to say one thing real quick, and that's just that as someone who did both my undergrad and my master's in UCD, it's very heartwarming to hear this story from a while ago, because I can guarantee you that nowadays there are baby dykes everywhere on campus. They're as far as the eye can see. So I just wanted to share that the war was won, the battle was won. They're everywhere.
Good.
I actually had a quick question for both James and Ailbhe. In your particular field, so say in writing and in activism, what are your thoughts on participation from people outside of, say, the lived experience of what you're working towards as an activist or what you're writing about as a writer? So James, how do you feel about cis writers who write trans characters? And Ailbhe, how do you feel, say, about men becoming involved in feminism or straight people becoming involved in LGBTQ plus equality?
So this is my personal feelings on it. I know there are people who don't think that any cis authors should write any trans stories, and I'm totally fine with people thinking that. So I'm speaking in a personal capacity, but my opinion is that, I think that the own voices movement in writing, that is for having, people writing and drawing from their experience, I think that's very important. But the reason for that is because the writing field is currently 80-90% cis-het white men. And so obviously the reason that matters is that marginalized authors aren't getting to write. So for me, I've read, for example, Days to That End by Sebastian Barry, which is a book by a cis man about a trans woman. And I think it's a beautiful book. I think it has, insights into gender and transness that I have not read in many books by trans people. But I think the issue is that, it it doesn't matter how beautiful a book is if a trans woman, you know, the publishing industry only has so much money. It can't publish everyone indefinitely.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, if you are a, you know, person, if you are a cisgender person and you write a book that is about the trans experience, a publisher who accepts that will no longer accept that same kind of genre or that same kind of story from a trans person, because no publisher wants to publish the same book twice. So as soon as you take up that space, it's gone. There's a finite number of spaces. And I think that's the issue for me, is that, like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I don't have issues with, you know, cis writers writing trans stories. But in this moment in time, I have a very large issue with it. I don't think it's appropriate at this point in time, when if you Google Irish trans writer, the top 3 results, and I check this every week, so trust me, are Sebastian Barry, John Boyne, Graham Linehan. And that's for very different reasons. You know, Sebastian Barry's up there because he was the laureate for fiction. And when that book came out, it was very well received. And so most of the press is just, great book, we all love it. And part of the reason for that is it's a historical book that never uses the word trans. So it's not generally kind of included in the conversation because the characters in it don't have the word trans. And then, you know, obviously John Boyne is in the results because of his controversy. And then Graham Linehan is up there because he's a terrible person. I won't miss words. He's just awful. So yeah, I would say until the top 3 Google results are no longer cis men, cis people can stop writing trans fiction. It's just, there's only so much room, and like, it's not your room. Like, someone else needs to have that place. And if you want it for you, it is a selfish impulse. I genuinely just think it's selfish.
Interesting. Ailbhe, do similar principles apply, do you think, to activism?
Well, I don't generally have hard and fast rules, absolutist. I always like to negotiate things. On the whole, I feel that you know, when you're involved in a movement for something, we all need allies. So I'm very happy, for example, to support people that where there are differences between us as an ally. But for example, if I take the Black Lives Matter movement, couldn't possibly or right or whatever in that particular arena. But I'm really, really, really keen to support people who are being discriminated against because of racism. So, you know, I think there are always ways in which you can support people. You know, as James says, you don't have to take up that space yourself, but you can indicate that you're up for it. So, you know, certainly, because there have been some feminist voices which are, as we know, very anti-trans, I'm very conscious that as a feminist, that I will always make my point that I think that's unpardonable and that there's absolutely no reason for it. You know, but that's not. You know, I wouldn't take up if there's a trans woman or man actually speaking up there. I'm not going to take up that space. But I don't much like absolutism, because I think human life is incredibly complicated. Oh my God. And it gets more complicated as you get older. Sorry about that, but it just does.
That is an absolutely beautiful note to finish off on. And thank you so much, Ailbhe. Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, Avoca. We'll go to our last piece of music and then our open mic. But I just wanted to say, of course, we're so sad that the book collection is not ready to be handed out yet. We were hoping that the levels might have changed, but they haven't, alas. And what I would encourage our readers or people who are interested in any of our materials to do is to check out online. There is a lot of LGBT stuff on our online services, our BarBox, or Be Digital. There's magazines and everything. So you're not completely without, but we really look forward to opening the doors and getting the kill out there into people's hands. So once again, thank you much, everybody on the panel. And that was just an amazing night. Thank you so much. I can see everybody clapping here. So now, evoke a reaction. We have a little video to roll.
Now this one goes out for all the straights and the gays, the thems and the theys that have been pushed down by this cis-normative system we got going on up in here. I wrote the immortal words of Shaka Khan just for you, and it goes a little something like this. Here we go. I'm every gender, I'm non-binary. Didn't mean to confuse you straight, it's just happens naturally. I'm every gender, I'm non-binary. Got no time for your gender norms or cis-normativity, no, no, no. No, no, no. Well, they ask me, are you a he or she? Well, it's all the same to me. This is not a phase, I sure as heck won't be erased. And if you find that your gender fluctuates, sing with me, don't hesitate, cause I'm every gender, I'm non-binary, yeah. Couldn't mean to confuse you straight, it's just happens naturally. Now gender's assigned at birth, but it doesn't define your worth. Screw the gender norms, there's no pressure to conform. Anytime you feel dysphoria or fear, call on me, I'll be your queen, yeah, cause I'm every gender, I'm non-binary, yeah. Didn't mean to confuse you straight, it just happens naturally. I'm every gender, I'm non-binary, yeah. Got no time for your gender norms or this normativity, no, no, no. No, 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 let me tell you something. Check your pronouns, cause them's the one. There'll be a showdown if you assume them heard. Don't ask me what is up in my pants, cause that's none of your business, baby, no. None of your business, baby, no. Oh, whoa, whoa. Come on, slobber loggery. Sing it with me now, just one more time. I'm every gender. I'm every gender. I'm every gender. I'm every gender. Want you to know, want you to know, I'm non-binary, yeah.
Hi. So we have our open mic now, and we are going to have, we got loads more comments in. Thanks for a brilliant night. Thanks so much for the webinar panelists. You were stunning. Lou, you were fantastic. Thank you. Thanks everyone. That's from Jen Keane, from Maeve Callahan, from Niall Jordan, who had an extra question, but we don't have time to go to it. Thanks everyone. Also there is a little push or little thing from Max, who wants to plug that the Sligo Pride meeting is happening after this, so everybody's welcome to go to that. And we'll just go to Andrew now for the open mic, please. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thanks. If I'd known I was the only one, I think I probably would have chosen an epic to read, but this is just a short poem. 2 roses. 2 long-stemmed roses in a vase, one red, colour of velvet of a velvet evening, the other as pink as a reflection on morning dew. The red full-formed, the pink a bud. What does one do in a city when one has nothing to do? In a moment between coffees, I sat in a church on Whitefriars Street, where a garlanded skull grinned from its golden requilary. There were bones, but where I thought was the heart. Decay does not tell of love, death shows no passion. They cannot show the warmth of a mother's embrace. The red slowly sheds its petals, blood spots on the table. When it is a rose no more, its colour and scent remain. And all the while, the pink begins to blossom. Thank you.